One time for the city. My city.
Justice League.
Bitch up on the land till I die. Till I die. On the east side till I die. Till I die. Bubbing that bone thugs till I die.
Hello and welcome to Ohio's Praise. I'm Mike and this is my co-host Chris, and this is going to be a slightly different episode than we normally do because we're going to focus entirely on the World Series, and hopefully that not only shortens the episode, but it provides a little bit more insight onto what happened to the Tribe. And unfortunately, not unfortunately for Cleveland, the Tribe did not win the World Series, as I'm sure many of you know. The Cubs, however, ended their drought of 108 years, which personally didn't. I don't know how you felt about it, but it's great that happened for them, because we got to see our drought ended earlier, and we know how we all felt when the Cavs won. To be able to see the Cubs win, I think, was great for baseball, and I think good for the city of Chicago as well, even though it was at our expense.
That is a very interesting point, Mike, because in my opinion, the droughts are not comparable, because the Cubs had their drought, yes, and I do want to congratulate the Cubs on their season and their victory over Cleveland. It was a phenomenal series, hands down, probably one of the best series in history in the books.
They were comparing it to the 91 series, where it was like the Braves and the other team.
I mean, Game 7 had all of its emotion. I mean, I was at my highest and my lowest. However, in my opinion, Cleveland's drought was it was all of Cleveland, I'm saying, because since 1964, no one was able to win. Like the Browns, the Cavs, the Indians, not able to reach the top, right? But since 1990, Chicago has had 11 championships. So the feeling for the fans is very different, because we've had one championship in 52 years. This will be their 12th since 1990, which is 26 years. So, I mean, I'm still happy for the Cubs themselves. I'm very happy for it, because that's a great accomplishment for them. But for Cleveland, it's very different, because if you're from Cleveland, like we're from Cleveland, and if someone asks you, hey, where are you from? And you say, oh, I'm from Cleveland, we sometimes can get laughed at because of our history from, like, oh man, Cleveland sucks, like the Browns, total nightmare, right? But you say you're from Chicago, and like, oh, that's cool, like, because Chicago's a cool place. People want to go there. People go there for vacation. They've planned what?
Because that's the thing that Joakim Noah said, where he's like, I never heard nobody
say
they wanted to go to Cleveland for
exactly.
vacation.
That's what I'm saying. And this, before the series, Cleveland was on its way up. I mean, we talked about it in the first episode. That one guy whose name I can't pronounce,
Stipe Miocic.
he won. Then the Monsters
Won the Calder Cup.
and then
Cavs.
the Cavs, and then the
RNC.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
And so it's like Cleveland was on its way up, and finally it was in this light of like, Cleveland is the place to be. And now we're gonna get hurled at with, oh, the Indians lost the World Series again.
3-1 lead.
They blew a 3-1 lead, and like, oh, that's another thing I want to talk about. Like the 3-1 lead, just because it's only because us obnoxious fans decided to push it in the face of the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing a wristband that says the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead right now.
That is so different on so many levels, because first off, basketball and baseball are two different sports. If you have a dominant team in basketball, most likely they're going to win. They're expected to win. Now, the same is in baseball. However, there's so many different factors in baseball, like pitching. Totally, like that. The pitching controls the game, and obviously in basketball there isn't a pitcher, but how you play the game is so different. And the Warriors were the first team to lose in the finals from a 3-1 lead.
That's happened before in baseball.
That's happened 5 or 6 times. Yeah. So to me, it's not the same, even though it did happen.
The only similarity is that there was a 3-1 lead and that one team
That's
gave
it.
it up.
That's it.
That's pretty much it.
The
Even though the Indians had home field advantage, it had nothing to do with the fact that they had a better regular season record. In baseball, the way it works is whichever league wins the All-Star game, they get home field advantage in the World Series.
I didn't know that.
So the Cubs, they had the best regular season record across all of baseball. Despite that, the American League won the All-Star game, so thus the Indians had home field advantage.
That's another thing. The Warriors were the best team in the entire association. They broke the record for most wins in a season, and they had the first time unanimous MVP. And yet the Indians are the 22nd highest payroll in the league. So that, and no one picked us to be there. I mean, no one did. Not even out of Boston.
Yeah, no one picked us. None of the experts at ESPN picked us to get past Boston. Unanimously, they decided to choose that the Red Sox would beat us, which clearly did not happen.
Yeah. So the Indians lost. They blew a 3-1 lead. Okay. So what happened in those 3 other games that went wrong for the Indians, Mike?
Okay. So here's my theory. The Indians swept the Red Sox, correct?
Yes, they did.
4 games in a row we won.
3.
Oh, because it was a 5-game series.
Yes.
That makes sense. Then Toronto, was it
It was 3-1.
3-1?
Yeah, we lost the
Okay.
4th game.
So only 4 games.
Yeah.
This series went all the way to 7.
Yes.
Now, additionally, the Indians are a team that is built around their pitchers. I'm sure you've heard every announcer who's announced the Indians through the postseason has said that at least once. We have Cy Young winner and Kluber. Trevor Bauer's pretty good. Like he originally wasn't a starter this year, but he had to come in for Carrasco and Salazar. Carrasco and Salazar, both hurt, but both were a huge component in getting us into the World Series, even though they didn't play in the postseason. Andrew Miller, who we picked up at the trade deadline, Brian Shaw and Cody Allen. Our bullpen was phenomenal all year. Now, the Cubs are a team that thrives off of their offense. I've heard at least 2 or 3 times they have hot bats. Like when one player on their team is gonna gets a hit, it's more likely that the rest of them thrive off of that and they get hits because like they continue to get hits. It's like contagious for them. Like their offense is a huge portion of the game, and not to take away from their defense because they had their entire infield make the All-Star team. That being said, when the Indians, who are already injury depleted in their starting pitchers, had to take a series all the way to 7 games, that caused us to have to put guys like Kluber and Miller and even Allen and Shaw in situations where they're coming off of short rests and throwing for more pitches and more innings than necessarily they'd be used to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it came down to 7 innings, everyone's pitchers were tired. You could see Chapman was tired. Like a guy who throws over 100 miles an hour,
Yeah,
he was struggling.
Well, he was also put in game 5 and 6, and he didn't necessarily need to come in game 6.
Yeah,
because they were up 6-1.
The point was,
he did throw.
The Cubs, their bullpen was not as deep as ours.
Yeah,
but both of our bullpens were depleted, and they were both tired.
I mean, especially at the end. It's the end of the season, and the game and the schedule is 162 games, plus they played 8 games before, so their arms are like falling off by now. And we said Bauer wasn't originally a starter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough situation to be put in. Okay, we're gonna put you as a starter now, and it's the World Series. And if you look back at games 2 and 5, we lost those games, and Bauer started those games for us. And so, I mean, I'm not putting all the blame on them because it seemed when our pitching wasn't there, our offense wasn't there either.
Exactly, and that Like when you have tired pitchers, like even as good as Kluber is,
Mhm.
and even as good as the rest of our bullpen and the rest of our starters have been, when a pitcher is tired, hits happen. They just do. They come because their control is slightly off. The pitches aren't necessarily where they want them to be, and the batters can take advantage of that. The Cubs, as a team, were more poised to take advantage of a tired bullpen and tired pitchers than the Indians were, and we'd known that from the start. Our offense has been good, it's just not the same as them. They have guys like Tony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Zobrist, and Kyle Schwarber. They all
Russell came up big too.
Russell even, and I think Dexter Fowler.
Mm-hmm.
He led the Game 7 off with a home run. That was a tough, to even just a 1-0 hole in the first inning.
He just named 6 players. There's only 9 players that bat.
Yeah, and
so I mean that's the majority of them.
They were all factors in getting hits. And once the Indians were right there with them. It was an 8-7 game. That's a close game, but they just had that much more in the end.
I mean, you could see it though in Game 7. I mean, first batter hits a home run off Corey Kluber, whose ERA was sub-1.
It was a 0.6 or 0.8.
I don't know.
It's something absurd.
I mean, he doesn't give up home runs on the first batter. Let's put it that way.
And even a home run, like a solo home run, isn't a big deal.
No.
Pitchers don't normally look at that as being.
They're like, okay, that was a good pitch.
It was a good pitch. He took advantage of it, and it's just one run.
Yeah.
But you just don't see it happen too often. That's the first leadoff home run in a Game 7 of the World Series ever.
That's it.
That's a baseball stat.
That's a stat.
I've ever heard a baseball stat.
Yeah, right.
It's about as specific as it could get.
Yeah. And I mean, that was Kluber's 3rd time pitching in 1 week.
Mm-hmm. He started 1, 4, and 7.
Yeah. I mean, he usually pitches what? Maybe twice a week? Maybe.
Maximum, yeah. I think I've heard a pitcher should be able to pitch like every 4 days, and he was not getting 4 days rest.
Yeah.
Or he was really close to it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's enough about the World Series itself. Let's talk about the offseason a little bit, Chris.
I think the offseason is going to be most used for our injured players. 3 main players missed out on the World Series, and mostly the end of the season. Michael Brantley, outfielder, and then 2 of our pitchers, Carrasco and Salazar, obviously. Once our 2 of our pitchers come back, our full rotation will be so much more smooth. I don't think there'll be much problems. But obviously Brantley missed most of the season, right?
Mm-hmm. He came back briefly in May, I think. But
yeah.
He had to go.
And I mean, he was always a key part of our offense.
He was a veteran, and he's really a guy that like people look to be a leader. And it's tough to see him have to miss such an exciting season.
It really was. And so I mean, that's what I would definitely look forward to, is having hopefully Brantley come back. He's been injured a few years, hasn't he?
I think he's been struggling with his shoulder for a little bit. I think he started the year with the shoulder. Maybe got I want to say concussion last year.
Okay, so apparently Michael Brantley is also one of the starting quarterbacks for the Browns. But anyway,
there is good news for an off season. Yeah, of course, the injuries were rough this year. We can't expect that at least some won't happen next year. Hopefully, Francona will be able to, and he does a great job, will be able to adjust properly or even better for next year. Because we have so many key parts coming back. Like we have, hopefully Brantley will be able to play, like you said, and then our 2 pitchers will be back. We'll have Santana. We picked up his 2017 option on his contract. The Indians organization picked up Francona's 2019-2020 option on his contract, so he's good all the way through 2020, which is great news.
That's when we graduate.
Yes, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Lindor. Well, he's under contract till 2021, which for a guy as great as he is, that's great. That's great for the organization. Kipnis. I don't know specifically about his contract.
Okay.
There have been some people did seem to think that Napoli might not be back. That being said, that was before we were in the World Series. To have Napoli back, despite how he struggled in the last couple of games of the World Series would be great because he's been in 2 or 3 World Series by now, and he's only 25, so he is a key part in our whole team. Coco Crisp's option for 2017 will not be picked up, so we may lose Coco, which it was fun to see him back.
Yeah,
and he will be missed. If he goes, there's still a possibility that his contract will simply be restructured, and we could sign him to a new contract, something a little cheaper than I think his $13 million option was.
Yeah.
I think that'll do it for the Tribe World Series recap.
On behalf of Mike and I, we just want to say thank you to the Indians for such a memorable season. I know that I will be telling my kids about this, and I'm sure Mike will too if he ever has kids.
Hopefully by then we'll have won the World Series.
Yes. We are very, very excited and looking forward to next season. We will be following with the Indians all the way, just like this year, and can't wait to see what happens next year.
All right. That'll do it for our show this week. Tune in next week to see a little bit more sports diversity than this week. This was a good Indians recap.
Oh yeah, sorry, this video is going to be a little late. It's a crazy week, and yeah, hopefully next week will be on schedule.
He's Chris.
He's Mike. See you next week.